2015. All right. Last week we did basically still in Revelation 11, and France and the Bible, and how France actually decided that they were tired of the government, which is used by the papacy in persecuting them. And because of that, they hated the government, hated the church, and went as far as hating the Bible and hating all religion. And they decided to worship reason. And because of that, they had to suffer the atrocities that they had to go through during the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror. All right, and that's what we did last week, and we'll continue. We'll continue this. Let me go to slide number. I'm going to go to slide number 57 now. All right. We're at Revelation 11, verse 9 to 10. And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies. Now, the dead bodies of who? The dead bodies of the two witnesses, which is the Bible. Right? People, kindreds, tongues, and nations. So the world is going to see the Bible being persecuted by France for 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their bodies to be put in graves. What does that mean? And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth. So there's going to be some people that actually are happy because the Bible was tormented. I mean, the Bible was, being killed, because the Bible tormented them. All right, tormented them of their sin. All right. Okay, so we'll see. Now we will see what the reaction is of the world and of the press of the world and what they actually wrote of that time. This is actually from Blackwood's magazine again, that the pioneers and Ellen White quoted from. The part that they quoted is up here. We read that last time, but I'm going to go and read another part of it, which is right down here. We do not profess to be better or more religious than our neighbors. Now, these are the people in Scotland, after they saw what the French did, right? We have no sympathy whatever with the temper which is constantly looking out for special blessings or special judgments, either upon individuals or nations. But we must follow the example which the French nation of 1790 set us, and throw off our allegiance to the Scriptures, so to the Supreme Being altogether, because we can doubt that such a national crisis must of necessity bring its trials a commensurate national punishment. See? Right. And certainly, if we take account of all that has since befallen our unfortunate neighbors across the channel, we shall discover no reasons for changing our belief in this particular. Yeah. Yeah. See, this is what is we're going to have to suffer. You know, they say that what France did, they're going to have to suffer for it.
What year was that magazine?
This was in 1870.
Yeah.
This was in 1870. I did not enlarge this just because I just want to make sure everybody realized that this was printed in 1870. by the people in Scotland.
Page 5?
Yeah, page
It's like 2.
page 2 down here.
Page 2? On the bottom there.
Page 2.
Don't see that too.
Yeah, page 2 down
We
here.
need another.
Right. So the French had to suffer because of what they did to the Bible. All right. Okay. And now we're going to read some things that were published in England. This was in Scotland, what was published in England. And it is quite graphic, so be warned. The London Times reporting on September massacre. This is during the French Revolution. It started before the Reign of Terror. You know, it started basically started when they attacked the Bastille. Remember that, Jillian R.C.? Right. The French Revolution started. And then they actually hang Louis XVI, right? Yeah. And all those uprising that was happening then. Okay, this is the London Times reporting on the massacres of September 10, 1792. As the affairs of France were naturally engrossed the whole of the public attention, we have made it our business to collect the occurrences that have happened with as much precision as circumstances would admit. In the history of mankind, we have no precedent of such wanton and disgraceful excesses. Ooh. The Goths and the Vandals, when they leveled the gates of Rome and triumphantly entered into the capital, yet still retained those feelings which distinguish the mind of man from the ungovernable appetite of the brute creation. It is true, they commanded the Roman ladies to attend them with wine under the plantain trees, and insisted on the soldiers acting as slaves. But they neither violated the chastity of the one, nor deprived the others of life. So the French were worse than the Goths and the Vandals when they, leveled Rome. Far otherwise has been the conduct of the French barbarians. They delight in that kind of murder which is attended with cruelty and rejoice in every occurrence which can debase and unsex the feelings of men. They said it was terrible. It was worse than the barbarians of the Goths and the Vandals. This is the part that becomes very graphic. When the mob went to the prison de la Force, where the royal attendants were chiefly confined, the Princess de Lamballe went down on her knees to implore a suspension of her fate for 24 hours. This was at first granted until a second mob, more ferocious than the first, forced her apartments and decapitated her. The circumstances which attended her death were such as makes humanity shudder, and which decency forbids us to repeat. Previous to her death, the mob offered her every insult. Her thighs were cut across, her bowels and heart torn from her, and for 2 days her mangled body was dragged through the streets. This is incredible. This is even worse than the barbarians. And the rights of man, see, remember said? We want the rights of man. We don't want God's commandment. We want the rights of man. And these are the rights of man? Is this the liberty of human nature? The most savage four-footed tyrants that range the unexplored deserts of Africa in point of tenderness rise superior to those two-legged Parisian animals. Common brutes do not prey upon each other. Wow, that's incredible.
You know the book, A Tale of Two Cities? It's based on the French.
That's right. The Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens, and how he wrote. Your kids, did you actually have to read that, or?
I know the synopsis of it.
Yeah, it's basically the French Revolution.
Maybe it's wrong.
Yeah, it was really terrible what they did.
But thinking back, initially the British actually was in favor when they first started. And then the French got so bad in the treatment of that. He said,
Yeah.
the were saying about violence.
This is the Morning Chronicle on the September massacre of 1792. Can we go with confidence to meet the enemy and leave traitors in existence behind us? Let us cut the throats of every traitor. Such was the horrid proposition made in the assembly of the Federates in the hall of the Jacobins. Such were the exclamations of this part they cannot read it from the newspaper, probably the mob that crowded the streets. The blood freezes in our veins when we relate the effects of this monstrous proposition. The mind revolts from the evil as a horrible calumny on our common nature, but truth demands the sad and shocking reality. It was just incredible how brutal they were. They have no God anymore, you know. The restraining hand of God is already taken away. So now they behave like animals. Now this is the London Times describing the execution of Louis XVI. Okay. All right. At 6 o'clock on Monday morning, the king went to take a farewell of the queen and royal family. After staying with them some time and taking a very affectionate farewell from them, the king descended from the tower of the temple and entered the mayor's carriage, and his confessor and two members of the municipality, and passed slowly along the boulevards which led from the temple to the place of execution. All women were prohibited from appearing in the streets, and all persons from being seen at their windows. A strong guard cleared the procession. The greatest tranquility prevailed in every street through the procession passed, and about 9:30, the king arrived at the place of execution, which is on the place the Louis XV. Well, anyway, okay. Here it is. Louis was mounted on the scaffold with composure, and that modest, intrepid peculiar to oppressed innocence. The trumpets sounded and drums beating during the whole time. He made a sign of wishing to harangue the multitude when the drum ceased. And Louis spoke these few words: I die innocent, I pardon my enemies, and I only sanction upon compulsion the civil constitution of the clergy. He was proceeding, but the beating of the drums drowned his voice. His executioners then laid hold of him, and an instant after his head was separated from his body. This was about 10:15 o'clock. After the execution, people threw their hats up in the air and cried out, Viva la nation! Viva la nation! Some of them endeavored to seize the body, but it was removed by a strong guard to the temple, and the lifeless remains of the king were exempted from those outrages which His Majesty had experienced during his life. Right? Yeah, this basically describes everything that actually happened around that time. All right. The request of the unfortunate Louis breathes the soul of magnanimity and a mind enlightened with the finest ideas of human virtue. So now the English are actually siding with Louis. He appears not to be that man which his enemies reported. His heart was sound, his head was clear, and he would have reigned with glory had he but possessed those faults which his assassins laid to his charge. His mind possessed the suggestions of wisdom, and even his last moments, when the spirit of life was winged from another world, his lips gave utterance to them, and he spoke with firmness and his resignation. Thus has ended the life of Louis. So they were actually very amazed at actually what happened. Just like the Bible says, this is what they were amazed at actually what happened. Okay, what does Ellen White say? Great Controversy, page 276. Writers, in referring to the horrors of the revolution, say that these excesses are to be charged upon the throne and the church. In strict justice, they are to be charged upon the church. Popery had poisoned the minds of kings against the Reformation as an enemy to the crown, an element of discord that would be fatal to peace and harmony of the nation. It was the genius of Rome that by this means inspired the direst cruelty and the most galling oppression which proceeded from the throne. So it's really because how the Pope treated the people, the Reformation. is how the government then treated the people. And because of that, the people rebelled against even the Bible. And when they took revenge upon the church, because a lot of the priests were all beheaded also on the guillotine. When they took revenge, they were like animals, right? The world stood aghast at the enormity of guilt which had resulted from a rejection of the sacred oracles. And men recognized the necessity of faith in God and His Word as the foundation of virtue and morality. Right? So this is the point. This is what the point of what the revolution, French Revolution, is teaching us. If we give up the Bible, and the nation will actually give up the Bible, this is what's going to happen. All right, Revelation 11, verse 11 to 12. And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered unto them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. Okay, so after 3.5 days, this is actually 3.5 literal years. The Spirit of life. Oh, so now the witnesses now wake up, and they stood up, and now the great fear fell upon them. So now the Bible is going to stand up after that. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, Come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. So they, yeah, it's actually 3.5. Now we will see here. This is what a lot of people are actually arguing. Was it really 3.5 years? Did it actually happen that in 3.5 years the Bible was suppressed and then it rose up, Okay, we'll see. All right. This is essentially that on June 17th, this is a council brought back religion. Now after 3.5 years. So it's first started in November of 1793. And in June 1795, or 97. Well, anyway, we'll go through there. It's 3.5 years later that they made now a revision of the laws that relative to religious worship. All right. So all citizens may buy or hire edifices for free exercise of religious worship. All congregations might assemble by the sound of bells. See, before they had to destroy the bells, and they have to destroy all their edifices or their all their statues or everything that they actually crosses and everything like that. No test or promise of any sort unrequired from other citizens should be required of the ministers of these congregations. Individuals attempt to impede or any way interrupt the public worship should be fined. So you cannot impede public worship. So entrance to assemblies of purpose religious worship should be free for all citizens. Other laws concerning religious worship should be repealed. All right? Okay, here you go. The church and the Bible had been slain in France from November 1793 till June of 1797. 3.5 years were expended, and the Bible, so long and so sternly repressed before, was placed in honor and was openly the book of free Protestantism. So from November 1793. Remember, November 1793 is when they actually worshiped the goddess of reason. This opera singer, they took and paraded her and went into the Notre Dame church, and they worshiped her there. And after that, they burned the Bibles. It was in November 1793. And then they made many laws against the Bible and against all religion until June of 1797 when they repealed them. And now the Bible was. So that's 3.5 years. So this is why Ellen White had to make a revision, because it was not one law. It was multiple laws. So the decrees were made that reversed And now the Bible is now no longer, no longer dead, so to speak. Okay. Great controversy, 287. Since France made war upon God's two witnesses, right? They had been honored as never before. Now this is what it means when the Bible is now standing up. In 1804, the British and foreign Bible societies were organized. This was followed by similar organizations with numerous branches upon the continent of Europe. In 1816, American Bible Society was founded, and a British society was formed. The Bible had been printed and circulated in 50 tongues. It has since been translated into many hundreds of languages and dialects. So now even, you cannot even suppress the Bible anymore, right? It is the most translated, the most published book in history, and it cannot be suppressed. And the only way it can be suppressed is by what? Is by compromising it, by making changes into the versions. You pervert the word, because you cannot suppress the actual Bible anymore, so you just have to pervert it. Yeah, so people actually have a false understanding. They think that, okay, well, we have the Bible, but they have the perverted Bible, and then they have a false understanding, and they're still lost anyway. Yeah, they're still deceived. All right. Oh, we're just going through this now. Revelation 11, verse 13. And the same hour was there a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell. And in the earthquake was slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted, and gave glory to the God of heaven. Okay, so what does this mean? The same hour. At that time, there was a great earthquake. Is this spiritual or literal? And the 10th part of the city fell. Oh, right away, you know this is spiritual. 10th part of the city and great earthquake. What earthquake happened in that time? Okay. Great controversy, 268. The restraining spirit of God, which imposes a check upon the cruel power of Satan, was in great measure removed. Right? He whose only delight is the wretchedness of men was permitted to work his will. Those who had chosen the surface of rebellion were left to reap its fruits until the land was filled with crimes too horrible for pen to trace. The crimes were so horrible. From the devastated provinces and ruined cities, a terrible cry was heard, a cry of bitterest anguish. France was shaken as if by an earthquake. So this is a spiritual earthquake. It was shaken. All the persecution, everything that happened to France was like a big earthquake. You know, right now we're studying about France, and the hottest place on earth right now is France. Gonna, right now. Yeah, coincidence, huh? We're studying about France, and yeah. From devastated provinces and ruined cities, a terrible cry was heard. Right? It was devastated by an earthquake. Religion, law, social order, the family, the state, and the church, all were smitten down by the impious hand that had been lifted against the law of God. Ooh. So that's the earthquake. See, this is the earthquake. It's a spiritual earthquake. Happened to France. And slain of men's, okay. And this is the earthquake. And the 10th part of the city. What is a 10th part of the city? How do you prophetically, how do you say a 10th part of the city? How do you understand that? Okay, what is the city then? And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. What is that city? Rome, right? Right, Rome, right? And Rome is divided into the 10, right? The 10 toes. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings. Oh, there you go. The 10 kings shall arise. And another shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. Right? One of those 10 kings is the Franks, right? So 1/10 of the city is France, and it suffered a great earthquake, spiritual earthquake, and 1/10 of the people died spiritually, right? Right. So it's basically the Franks that died. Revelation 12:30. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns. Right? This is Rome, right? Rome has the 10 kings, yeah, the 10 horns. Right. So when you say that 1/10 of the city actually died, is actually France, right? Yeah, 1/10 of the city. All right. Okay. So you understand that the city is Rome, and 1/10 of the city is one of the nations, which is France. Okay. That was not too difficult. Yeah, that was quick. All right. Now we're going. Revelation 11:14-17. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And the 7th angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven. Okay, I got to stop right there. Just by reading this, you have to know the sequences of events, all right? The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. What does that mean? Is the second woe and the third woe consecutive? Or is it preceded by a gap? See, the second woe is past. The second woe is already past, and the third woe is still in the front. Meaning, there's a gap, right? The second woe is past, and the third woe is is still coming. It's in the future, right? Meaning, it's not back to back like the first and the second woe. Remember, the first and second woe is back to back.
They kind of like interlap.
Right, they're back to back. Now, when you read this, you realize, the Bible does not give you like all kinds of, here you go, for sure, this is what happens, It just tells you in one sentence, you got to know what happened here. The second woe is past, and the third woe cometh quickly. In other words, it's not back to back. There's going to be a gap, right? And the 7th angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven. So the 7th trumpet, right, sounds after the 6th trumpet, and there's going to be a period of time that the third woe comes, all right? Okay? The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord, and His Christ, and He shall reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders which sat before God on their seats fell upon the faces and worshiped God, saying, We give thee thanks, O Lord God Almighty, which art and was and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and hast reigned. When I was studying this, I was saying, wow, what does this mean? Okay. First of all, let's go to the 24 elders. You remember the 24 elders? Where have you studied the 24 elders? Oh, it's obviously all in Revelation, right? Okay, Revelation. Maybe we just open our Bibles, okay? Revelation 4, verse 4, and Revelation 4, verse 10. 4, verse 4, and 4, verse 10. We studied this a little bit when we were doing Revelation, I think Revelation 8 and 9. Right. Can somebody read Revelation 4, verse 4, and then 10?
And round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on their heads crowns of gold.
Right.
And the 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne, worshiping that liveth forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne.
Okay. When you read this, it's talking about that 4 and 20 elders, they have white robes, they have crowns of gold, and they're round about the throne in heaven. And it's also talking about the 7 lamps, which are the 7 spirits of God. Now, what is that? That's the 7 spirits that is given to the churches. So this is talking, because Revelation 2 and Revelation 3 is about the churches, right? And they have the spirits, right? So this is talking about this. So the 7 churches, it's the 24 elders has something to do with the 7 churches, all right? Now go to the Revelation 5, verse 5 to 8.
And one of the elders said unto me, Weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book, and to loose the 7 seals thereof.
No, this
And
sounds.
I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 beasts, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, sent forth into all the earth. And he came and took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. And when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of the saints.
So this is when the Lion of tribe of Judah, right, is opening the 7 seals. So it has something to do with the 7 churches and the 7 seals. And in verse 14 it says, every time the 20 and 4 elders, they will worship God again, right? It's the same thing. Some event, some prophecy happens, 7 churches, 7 seals, and then they worship God. All right, Revelation 7, verse 11.
And all the angels stood round about the throne and about the elders and the 4 beasts, and fell before the throne on their faces and worshipped God.
All right, and what were they exclaiming? As you back up and just browse through that. What were they talking about? This is the 144,000. Remember Revelation 7 is when the 4 angels are to be held back, the 4 winds, right? And they're told not to blow. The winds are not to blow because of why? Because the 144,000 are still not sealed yet, right? They need to be sealed, right? So this is talking about the 144,000 being sealed and not will let the winds blow and worship God. Okay. Now obviously Revelation 11, this is talking about the 7 trumpets. And then the 24 elders also worship God. Now Revelation 19. Revelation 19, verse 4.
And the 4 and 20 elders and the 4 beasts fell down and worshipped God that sat on the throne, saying, Amen.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
When you back up on that, it's why are they praising God? Because it was the judgment of the great whore. And what is that talking about? The 7th plague. Remember Revelation 18, right? That's talking about the 7th plague when the whore will be cast into the lake of fire and will be burned. All right. So it has something to do. This has something to do with the 7 churches, 7 seals, the 144,000, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 plagues. All 7s. Yeah. And it all ends when Jesus has a bride. Okay. All right, we'll see this. Okay, now Jesus has a bride and will come to the marriage, right? Because now he is the key of David, and he will receive his scepter back, right? And he received his scepter from the kings of the earth, because now all the nations are now his nations. He will receive his scepter back. Because remember, it was taken away. when Israel and Judah was taken away by the Assyrians, they took away the supremacy of God's kingdom. And the scepter was passed on to the Assyrians, and then to the Babylonians, and to the Medo-Persians, and to Greece, and Rome, America, United Nations, back to the beast, to the eighth beast. And then what happens? And it is given back to Christ. So he gets back the nations, right? So this is talking about, all right, so now we have a little review here. The review is, we've seen this, remember when we did this, the fifth trumpet? The fifth trumpet starts in 606, when Islam rises, and when Focus declared John II as the corrector, a universal bishop. Universal bishop, yeah. Focus is the emperor of Byzantine. Yeah, he declared John Paul II or something like that. No, it's not Boniface. It's John Paul II. But anyway, and he's the universal bishop. And because of that, Islam rises and will start. Right. The smoke will come out. Right. This is 606, the beginning of the fifth trumpet. All right, and the first woe started on July 27, 1299. Islam rises, but can only torment. So it rises, but can only torment. So it's restrained. It cannot kill. So Islam is restrained here. For how long? 5 months. For 150 years until 1449. All right, and from there, now it can start killing. It destroys. Because in 1453, it attacks Constantinople, and Constantinople falls. The walls of Constantinople falls, right? And the second woe ends. When does the second woe end? August 11, 1840, which is the end of 391 years and 15 days. All right. So this is the fifth trumpet, goes back to back with the sixth trumpet, but the first woe is back to back with the second woe. All right? Okay. And we remember that this 4-year here is actually a fractal, which is the same as this 4 years here, because it starts with Islam here and Islam here too. Islam now starts to attack, but it's then restrained right here. Okay? Islam here, Islam here. All right? And then this goes all the way to October 22, 1844. And at this time, who predicted August 11, 1840? Josiah Litch, right? And who prepared the God's people for this time period, October 22, 1844? Well, William Miller, and then it was carried on by Samuel Snow, right? Right. So this is a fractal. This is also a fractal. A fractal of what? A fractal of this. Because this is our timeline, 1989, 9/11. Here's Islam. Here is Islam being restrained right here. This is the midnight, and this is the midnight cry, and here is the close of probation. Right, so this is because you can see this is this right here. Right, this right here. Islam attacks and is restrained. This is midnight, this is the midnight cry. Right? So before the midnight, we are also going to have to predict that Islam is going to attack. Right. We have to be like Samuel Snow. We are going to actually predict that it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. Josiah Litch, sorry. Yeah. Josiah Litch. Right. Okay. All right. So now you see this. Okay. What does this mean? It means that the first woe plus the fifth trumpet, so the first woe plus the second woe will make up the third woe, because 1 and 2, right, will make up this, right? What does that mean? That has a name to it. It's called triple application. The first woe plus the second woe will result in the third woe. If you understand the first woe, the characteristics of the first woe, you add the second woe to it, right? Here's this first woe right here, plus the second woe right here, adds up to this for. This is the third woe starting here. We know that, right? Because Islam attacks and restrained. Here, this is Islam attacking, Islam restrained. Then Islam will attack and restrain. Okay, let's see that here and there. This is the seventh trumpet. Starts at October 22, 1844. And remember that the third woe is not consecutive with the second woe, right? The third woe happens after the seventh trumpet has started, right? Okay. Now we put this into this timeline right here, because the first and the second woe will make up the third woe. We see that 1989 is the time of the end for us, right? Which is also corresponds to 606, right? Islam rises. They were watching for a war between the East and West. This is what happened. There's a big war between East and West, a long-standing East and West, and Islam is on the wall, just getting stronger and waiting. But still, America did not restrain Islam. Who restrained Islam, actually? It was the Soviet Union. But then, on 9/11, Islam attacks and is restrained by United States. So that's the beginning of the third woe. Because here Islam, so here Islam too. So the third woe is connected with Islam attacking and being restrained. All right? And then leads to the midnight cry, and then the close of probation, which is National Sunday Law. But obviously, it keeps going and going, okay, all the way until the seventh plague, right? Because it's talking about even when the nations are being given. When are the nations actually given to Jesus? When they're destroyed, right? Jesus comes because when is it that they're destroyed? At Armageddon. Wait, because they are going to all come together and they're going to be destroyed. Not because it's because they are actually going to destroy each other, right, at Armageddon. That's the sixth plague, and they'll have to receive the seventh plague. So it goes all the way. You know, we'll keep on going, but I'm not exactly convinced that it actually ends at the seventh plague. It probably ends at the end of the seventh millennium. Okay, we'll keep going, okay? But anyway, the third application. Here's the third application, all right? Remember the story of Elijah? Elijah had 3 enemies. Who are they? Ahab the dragon, Jezebel the beast, and the dancing prophets of Baal, which is the false prophets, right? Had 3 enemies. The dragon was fooled, thinking that the beast will be happy to hear that the false prophets were slain. All along, the beast wanted the heretic, and the heretic Elijah was translated, right? That's the story, right? Isn't that the story? Okay. Now, what about John? Now, Jesus said, John the Baptist, he is Elijah, right? John has 3 enemies also. Who? Herod, which is the dragon, Herodias, which is the beast, and dancing Salome, which is the false prophet, right? the beast makes the false prophet trick the dragon into asking for the heretic's head. Correct? The heretic John is then martyred. Okay, so how does the triple application work now? This is the first and the second put together. So what happens at the end time? All right, in the end time, the dragon will make the false prophet dance in front of the dragon. The dragon will make the false prophet dance. The beast will make the false prophet dance in front of the dragon, right? Right? And they will go and want to kill the heretic. When they were actually fooled, because it's another heretic that the beast actually wanted all along. Right? Right. The heretic that they wanted was who? They said, okay, let's go kill the heretic. The heretic is the one that, does not worship on Sunday and does not believe in the Trinity. And say, okay, let's go kill that heretic because it's bothering us all the time. When they decide to go kill that one, the beast says, well, no. That's not who I really want. I want the other one, the other heretic that does not believe in the Trinity and is keeping the Sabbath. Yeah. Who's the first heretic? You're fooled. America is fooled thinking that the Islam is the heretic. Does Islam believe in the Trinity? No. They say, we will kill everybody that believes in the Trinity. Right. So right now, who's going to be the corrector of the heretics? Who's going to be picked as the corrector of heretics? Right. So that's the triple application. The first and the second. And who is God's people going to be? Elijah and John. Because God's people at the end will be the martyrs, which is John, and the translated ones, which is... So some will be martyred and some will be translated. So that's the triple application. Okay, so we will see... So Islam attacks Rome swiftly without warning. We did this already before. And the leader is behind the scenes. Okay. In the second woe, Islam attacks Rome, and the four angels attack and then is restrained, right? The four angels attack right here and is restrained right here. And they attack with portable explosives. And in their back, behind the scenes, is an ultra-conservative Muslim. So, the third woe will be Islam attacks USA and then is restrained. It attacks suddenly without warning in 4 exploding airplanes. An ultra-conservative Muslim leader is behind the scenes. So that's the triple applications. You see the first plus the second, you will get the third. Okay. Right? Now Revelation 19, verse 11 to 20. Now when is this? Let me go back again. Revelation 19. What is this talking about? What is this talking about? All right. I will just read this. Oh, sorry. Let me go back. All right. Revelation 19. When is the kingdoms of the earth being given to God? Well, to Jesus, right? And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he sat upon him, was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he does judge and make war. His eyes were as flame of fire, and in his head were many crowns. He had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. It's obvious, it's Jesus. Jesus is on a white horse. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth, so he has an army, which are also on white horses, in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, and with it he would smite the nations, right? Smite the nations. Okay, let me go here first. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron. Now he's going to rule the nations. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. The wrath of the Almighty God. And he hath on his vesture, on his thigh, a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. All right, this is talking about Jesus. And he's going to rule the nations. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, Come and gather yourself together unto the supper of the great God, that ye may eat the flesh of the kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. And I saw the beast, the kings of the earth, which is the dragon, and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet. So the beast, dragon, and the false prophet, they go to war against the army of Jesus, right? When is this? This is at the sixth plague. This is at Armageddon, right? So this is talking with when the armies will be taken over, when they will be destroyed at Armageddon, at the seventh plague, right? And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that he had received the mark of the beast, and them that worship his image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. All right, so this is talking about the time of the seven plagues. Okay. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come. And the time of the dead, that they should be judged, that thou shouldest give reward unto the servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. Right. Revelation 11, verse 18. When does this happen? Now, actually, our pioneers, when they first started studying this, they said, oh, this actually already happened, or this is an event prophecy. In other words, this all happened at one time. And Ellen White, I can't remember, I don't have the quote yet. I should put it in. But anyway, Ellen White said, these Revelation 11, 18 are all distinct events that happen in succession. In other words, nations are angry first, and the wrath is come, and the time of the dead, they shall be judged, and the rewards are given to the saints, and then will destroy, and which destroy the earth. All right? These are all events that happen consecutively, all right? Not at one time. So when does this happen? When were the nations angry? We did this actually when we did the third wall. When were the nations angry? Okay, we'll do this. Okay, the easiest place to find this is actually Ellen White has 3 quotes that we did before. All right? Early Writings 41. I saw that the powers of the earth are now being shaken, and that the events come in order. All right? And the powers of the earth, all right, is not the shaking of the powers in Europe, but it is the shaking of the powers of heaven. But it is the shaking of the angry nations. So the shaking of the angry nations when the powers of the earth are being shaken. The angry nations is when the powers of the earth are being shaken. Okay, when did this? It actually happened, but it's happened again. When did this happen? Right. It's actually, but this is specific. This is specific to a time prophecy. I mean, not a time prophecy, or for an event prophecy. All right. The latter rain is to fall upon the people of God, a mighty angel to come down from heaven, and the whole earth to be lighted with his glory. This actually happens in 9/11. How do we prove this? Okay. The latter rain falls, and Revelation 18 angel comes down. So there's going to be an angering of nations, and there's going to be a latter rain, and there's going to be a coming down of Revelation 18 angel, which is the fourth angel. So the fourth angel is going to come, and latter rain is going to start sprinkling, and then there's going to be angry nations. And Ellen White puts it all under at one time. When New York, the great buildings fall in New York, is when the Lord shall arise and shake terribly the earth. When is that? When there's going to be anger of nations. So the anger of nations is when the powers of the earth are shaken. Shake terribly the earth, right? It's when the latter rain falls, when Revelation 18 comes down at 9/11. So Revelation 11 verse 18 starts at 9/11. So when the anger of nation is actually 9/11. Okay. When is thy wrath is come? The wrath of come is the plagues, right? Revelation 15:1. The wrath of God is the 7 angels having the 7 last plagues and fill them with the wrath of God. So it's talking about 9/11, and then it talks about the 7 plagues, all right? The 7 plagues. The great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And the great Babylon came in remembrance before God, and gave unto her the cup of wine and her fierceness of his wrath. Given the 7 plagues. Okay. All right. What about the time of the dead that they should be judged? When is the time of the dead that they should be judged? When is this talking about? It is the time of the judgment of the dead?
No, that's the saints in heaven.
There you go. Do ye not know that the saints shall judge the world? Right? And if the world should be judged by you, you are unworthy to judge the smallest matters. That's when the saints are going to be in heaven for 1,000 years, and they are going to judge the dead. Yeah, because the wicked are dead at that time. Right. That's when. So then it goes all the way until the millennium here. This at the time of the millennium. Revelation 20 verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and the judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. See, and they can judge. So they are going to judge the dead who's on earth, right? Because all the wicked are dead on earth, and only Satan and his angels are alive there. Okay, thou should give us rewards unto the servants and the prophets. When are the servants and the prophets going to get reward? Obviously when they are in heaven. So this is actually not difficult, because they are reigning in heaven. That's their reward. For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father and his angels, and he shall reward every man according to his works. So they will be rewarded. They will have, now what will they have? They get to heaven, and they will be rewarded the new earth. They're going to come back and Eden will be restored to earth. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, and give every man according to his work shall be. And you will have. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. You're going to inherit the kingdom again, because then it will eventually come down to earth. That's when you're going to be rewarded. So Revelation 11:18 is talking all the way from 9/11 all the way until the end of the 7th millennium. And then the punishment of the wicked. When is the wicked going to be punished? When they're going to get fire, right? but in the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word and kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and the perdition of ungodly men. Then they're going to be fired. That's the second death for the wicked. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city, and the fire came down from heaven, out of heaven, and devoured them. Right? So Revelation 11:18 is talking all the way from 9/11 all the way until the end of the 7th millennium. This is why I'm saying
It's a completely problem.
this is the third woe. The third woe goes all the way until the 7th millennium from 9/11, right? When the nations were angry. The third woe, meaning obviously the 7th trumpet, the third woe, because that woe is still for the people. Yeah, they're gonna still they were not completely sure. The dragon and the beast and false prophet are destroyed. The nations, now God has the nations of the world at the 7th plague, but their woe is not that done. Their woe is all the way up until the end of the 7th millennium, right? So actually the third woe goes all the way. Yeah, there's the only 3 woes. And then the third woe, remember, it starts at 9/11 when the nations are angry. Right? Goes all the way until the end of the 7th millennium when the fire will come down. So just from the Bible, their understanding, you actually figure out when the third woe, when the 7th trumpet starts, when the third woe starts, and when it all ends, all the way at the end of the 7th millennium. All right?
But in the evangelicals, none of those have even started.
That's a big problem. That's a big problem because, yeah, it's also in the future. Yeah, it's still in the future because the 7 trumpets are still in the future. Because people are confused between the 7 trumpets and the 7 plagues. Wait a minute, now this is the understanding of our pioneers. You know, you get all these verses. I just got from Daniel and Revelation. All these verses just came right out of your estimate. Daniel and Revelation. Our pioneer. This is the understanding of our pioneers.
Well, and plus they're blind because there's nothing about the Sabbath
Mm-hmm.
or the National Sunday Law. I mean, none of that. And
Yeah.
they're looking for a literal Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So this is very,
Once you really, there, and you're starting from the very beginning, the 10 commandments of God, it was already perverted.
Yeah.
Their understanding is already skewed.
and
So
then
you could never get it right.
and then you blend in the misunderstanding of the Trinity,
Mm-hmm.
the nature of God,
Yes.
the
Mhm.
state of the dead, all of it.
Oh, yeah.
The
They're,
rapture.
the rapture, all of it. So I mean, it's all connected. That's why when I came, the Lord brought me last year, this was all coming. I was shedding so much error.
Right.
So much light was coming in.
When you actually study this way and you find out the truth is in the Adventism, is in Adventism. You cannot be digging in other religions. The truth is in Adventism.
And yet we go drinking from
Yeah.
poison wells.
I mean, the pioneers got it right on the head when they did it. And it's true that Adventism has the message, and we got all of this, but yeah, it's all
Yeah. Yeah. Right from the Bible, you know. You figure out what the woes are, it's all in the Bible. But nobody actually, even Adventism now doesn't even know when third woe is. Have no clue.
Their understanding
Yeah,
is so perverted.
must admit.
They're still at the 1840
Mm.
prophecies.
Yeah, boy, that's what.
44.
I was
That's
like-
stop there.
So this is, Kathy, when you said, did anything happen since then? Where you go? So many things happened.
That was my whole thing. I'm like, well, has prophecy ended?
No.
You know what I mean? There's
After 1840.
I mean, all the
Yeah, the seventh trumpet and the third woe and all this right here. When you study this and you figure out, it's right from the Bible, you can figure out when the third woe starts, obviously you need, it made it easier when you actually had Ellen White help you to figure out when the nations are angry. Yeah, because that's at 9/11. So that actually tells you the third woe. It goes all the way until the end of the seventh millennium. Okay. All right.
Imagine Moses saw this, Daniel saw this,
Oh, yeah. Enoch saw this. Abraham saw this.
Enoch saw this, John the Revelator saw all of this.
This was already seen by them. They saw everything until Jesus came. Even Abraham saw this.
Abraham saw this.
Oh, yeah.
I
Right.
just imagine Abraham saying,
So he was like,
came for me, I just going to just
right?
we're going to kill his son.
Hmm?
And I was just like,
think Abraham knew it would be his seed, like
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was his seed.
But to that, I don't
That's
think
why.
Adam have a chance not to.
Oh, Adam saw it too.
Oh, yeah.
Adam saw everything. He was so sad because he's like, oh,
He was really the one that,
I actually have to crucify Jesus because of me. Jesus has to be crucified.
when the first animal was killed for them to wear, he, right there and then, he was just
He broke down. Yeah.
because of him that all of this, you know.
Okay. We're actually coming towards the end now. Revelation 11, verse 19. Now, we went all the way from 9/11 all the way till the end of the seventh millennium when the fire came down from heaven and what? And now we go. Revelation 11:19. And the temple of God was open in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament. And there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and an earthquake and a great hail. Wait a minute. This is not after the seventh millennium. No, he goes back now. And he tells you the beginning of the seventh trumpet. And the temple of God was in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, right? Right. When was this? Obviously, 1844. At the end of the 2300 days when the temple of God is, the sanctuary is cleansed, right?
And that's what Pyramidson saw.
All right, that's right. Then the temple of God was open in heaven. This is when he saw all the way into the most holy place, right? Because, seen in his temple is the ark of his testament. And thou shalt put an ark of the testimony, right? Which I shall give thee. Where? And he gave unto Moses, and he made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai. And 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God. And obviously, we know that it's actually placed in the most holy place inside the ark of the testament. So when you actually see that, when it's opened, it's 1840, October 22. So the seventh trumpet starts October 22, 1844. The third woe starts with the angering of the nations, 9/11. And it goes all the way until the end of the seventh millennium. And we see the 24 elders bowing to God. It has something to do with the 7 seals, the 7 churches, the 144,000 being sealed, the 7 trumpets. All this is the 7 trumpets, right? 7 plagues, 7 millennium. Wow, all this. When you really have to understand all of that. This is why we have to start studying. Right. All right, Revelation 16. And the 7th angel poured out his vial into air, and there came a great voice out of the temple. Oh, this is talking about the great hail, right? And the hail. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings and great earthquake, and there was earthquake, and so great, and the great city was divided in 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and the great Babylon come into remembrance. All right, this is the 7 plagues, right? when there was hail. And there was a great hail out of heaven. This is the seventh plague. About the weight of a talent. And man blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail. So when talking about the hail, it's about the seventh plague. All right. So all what we've been studying, actually we've come to the end. All of that. We've come to the end. Everything that we've studied, it has something to do. We've studied the seven trumpets. Now we could actually go into more, but we've done the third woe multiple times before. But this is just all the understanding that comes from Revelation 11. How it leads up to within only a few verses, it tells you exactly when the third woe is and how it actually comes about and when it actually ends. And it is the judgment of the great horde, which is the great city. And the great city of Babylon is the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. Right. But only if we understand this, right, is when we, as part of studying this, is when we do this line upon line, precept upon precept, is when the Holy Spirit is being given to us. And that's from Isaiah 28. And that's so important that even if we think that you're studying this, what's the use of studying all this? But when you actually see that Jesus is in it, it's the revelation of Jesus. The revelation of how he's preparing a remnant. The key of David is Jesus. And he has that key. And he will receive his scepter. He receive his scepter when the eighth beast is killed, right? Then now he gets his scepter back. Because he used to have that scepter. He was ruling Israel and Judah. He was the king of them, right? Right. But then it came to, he gave it up and gave it to Saul. And then the descendants of Saul had to give it to the Assyrians and then to the Babylonians and everything. But then he gets it back. But it's only after a remnant is taken out. All right? Well, I actually did not have a chance to make a summary. Maybe next time. Because I actually just finished the last few power slides just before we started. Yeah. Well, but there's so many things that you can actually put at the end, So many things that you studied. Specifically that I liked is the triple application, right? How it actually, the only way you can actually figure out the third woe is when you understand triple application, right? Yeah. That's right. Because the third woe is part of the seventh trumpet. So the third woe goes all the way until the seventh millennium. The end. The third woe starts at 9/11 when the angering of the nations is going. Because it's the woe is against Babylon, it's against Rome, it's against the armies of Rome, right? And they will still have to still receive their woe, not only at the seventh plague, but eventually at the end of the seventh millennium when fire will come down, right? And destroy them. That is when the third woe ends. Right. Okay. So this is the end of Revelation 11. All right. Next, we'll have to figure out what we're gonna do next time around. Okay. All right. Now let me put the end title. Oh, okay. There you go. All right. Next time I think I'm going to do a little bit of a summary of how we understand the waymarks.
That's what I was going to say. We have to go back, because in as much as we've started all of this, we need to go to the waymark.
Yeah.
That way we can really clarify.
Yeah, we have to go to the waymarks. We need to figure out how we actually came upon the waymarks that we actually have. because we put up the waymarks right there and said, wait a minute, we have to settle in our mind how we actually get to that waymark. We have to believe those waymarks first,
Where we are in the.
where we actually got there, so that we will know. All right, so we'll do that.
It becomes so many, starting from the very first and then.
Yeah, because there's so many. When you add it all up, you realize,
Then it gets confusing if you don't really.
yeah,
settle into it.
So there's waymarks are like a template.
yeah, because it repeats over and over and over again. You know, the things that we actually put that line, those are the waymarks on those line. You know, you cannot move those, and you have to protect those, and you have to understand those, and make sure nobody moves it, because it's like a peg that cannot be moved.
Once they move it, now
Yeah, right. You're lost.
the survey is like,
Yeah, you cannot. You don't know where you're going. If your waymarks it's moved, oh, you're gonna go.
Yeah, you mess it up.
You're gonna be lost. You're completely lost.
And then
So
while the SBA changes waymarks and they attack through prophecy,
absolutely,
totally disarming
that's right. When you
people.
yeah, the waymark says go left, oh, somebody just turn it to the right. Oh boy, everybody's going the wrong way now.
A new theology.
Okay.
basically you're following a trail, right?
Yeah.